It is in fact Raining Men. So, I'd like you guys to welcome Oscar-winning composer Michael Giacchino. Did the music to the movie you're going to see tonight. He's also written the music to Lost, every episode of Lost. Ratatouille just won an Oscar for Up. Mission Impossible 3. I can keep going. Here he is. Oh, yeah. Oh, we'll sit on the stairs. This will be more romantic. I don't like that. I think one thing some of you people might not know about Michael Giacchino is that he is a fan of Star Trek. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, maybe. Tell me what your introduction to this franchise was and what your feelings about it are.
All right, well, just to give you an example, I was back home for my parents' 50th anniversary this summer. And so I kept telling my son, you know, okay, we're going to go into the basement and I'll show you the toys and all that stuff. So we go down into the basement. Most of my toys I have out with me. Some of them are still at my parents', so I wanted to go just kind of do inventory and see if my brothers had stolen any of my stuff and all that. So, and of course what's down there is the original Enterprise set. You know, the one that had the thing you twist? Yes, exactly. So that's still down there, it was still there. And a bunch of my action figures. I mean, I had all of these guys, I had them all. And I grew up with it. I loved watching it on I saw, on TV, obviously, in reruns. But I loved the original series. Was fantastic. I loved it, and that was my. And I don't want to say this is not saying it's not a bad thing. That was my Star Wars before Star Wars in a way. You know what I mean? When that kind of came, took over the world. But yeah, it was a huge thing for me. So as a kid, I mean, I watched it and loved it and played with the toys, and I was a huge fan.
And maybe you can explain how you had the booth set up when you were actually doing the score to the new movie, because I was there and it was very apparent to me that Star Trek fans were at work scoring this movie.
Well, Jeff happened to be there on the day that I had bought the entire team Starfleet kind of uniform shirts, these T-shirts, so there was the blue and the gold and the red and divided them up between, okay, orchestrator would probably be blue, and music editor with definitely a red shirt. And so I handed everyone out their shirts. They all had, so the whole booth it looked, and if you've ever, I don't know if you've ever been in a recording studio or not, but it really does kind of look like the Enterprise. It looks like the when you're on the bridge there. So there was, Dan Wallen, my recording engineer, at the helm, and everyone was kind of just like in their uniform shirts all day. It was pretty hilarious. And there's pictures of it on the internet. I'm sure you can find pretty easily. Yeah, pictures never go away, do they? Once they're out there, that's it. They're all there.
Isn't there actually an illustrator there?
And there was an illustrator, yeah, because we weren't allowed to take photos, so we had someone come in and do courtroom type sketches. Because they wanted to do an article on the scoring sessions, but there was a complete blackout media stuff. And so we had a guy come in, Chad Fry, who was really great, and he did all of these sort of courtroom-esque illustrations, and those, again, you can find those online. It's very funny, pictures of me in my, captain's shirt and talking to JJ. JJ's just in his baseball hat and everything. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I tried to actually get JJ to wear a red shirt for a photo shoot. He refused.
Yeah, right.
He also had his $1,100 master replicas Enterprise over the booth during that. Yes, I want to ask you, I think maybe people don't understand kind of how daunting it was to tackle this movie, but I remember, reading on message boards before you started work, probably people are, talking about, well, he's got to use the Jerry Goldsmith theme. Oh no, he's got to use the James Horner theme. He's got to use the Alexander Courage theme. He should use the fight music from the original series. Everyone had, I think, an idea of what Star Trek music was, and in the history of this franchise, so many different people have done Star Trek music. Even just for the original show, there's like 8 different composers. And so you've got to acknowledge something about the history of this franchise, but it's a completely different approach. So I don't know if any of this was discussed when you started work, but tell me a little bit just about getting a grip on what this was going to be.
Yeah, well, it seemed there was really no shortage of people outside of the actual people working on the film who had opinions as to what I should do. It was just, everything was being put out into the universe. You know, he should do this, just like you said, do that, do this. I was thinking the same thing. What the hell should I do? I don't know what to do with this. I actually am a fan of this thing. I don't know what I should write. Is there a new main theme? What should it sound like? It should sound like space, right? It should sound, and it was funny because when I started working on the film, you know, they were still editing it, and JJ wanted to start coming up with ideas and hearing what we were going to have in the film. And so I started writing this music, and it was like, it's what you would have probably expected of Star Trek music. It's very grand and optimistic, and it's about outer space and all of these things. And I kept writing it, and I wasn't 100% feeling right, and I would play it for JJ, and he's like, no, well, it certainly sounds like space music, but it doesn't sound like our movie yet. You know, we were still finding, what was our movie? What was this movie? And I would write and write and write, and I did like 20 versions of this thing, and I finally was like so frustrated, like I didn't know what to do, because all I kept doing was what I thought would be expected of what people wanted to hear out of Star Trek. And what it came down to, I called Damon Lindelof, one of the producers on the film, and I was just telling him how, you know, hard this has been for me. And he was like, well, you know what? He goes, think of it this way. He goes, we're just making a movie about two guys who meet and become friends. And that's it. That's all you need to know. There's nothing, space is irrelevant, planets are irrelevant, spaceships are irrelevant. It's just about two guys who become friends. You know, one guy's had a really tough life, the other guy's had a little bit of a better go at it, but it's just how they became friends. And after I had that discussion with him, it was funny because it was the first time that I really didn't pay attention to a lot of my own rules of writing music for films and storytelling, because I was so wrapped up in the fact that it was Star Trek. But once I had that conversation with him, I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. It's really, and I just wrote this very kind of simple theme, which JJ was like, okay, that's our movie. Yes, that is our movie. But that wasn't before a lot of other music was thrown out there beforehand. And even at one point, what became Spock's theme in the film, in this version of the film, was actually at one point a contender for the main theme in the film. So it's like, you know, there's all these different kinds of things you go through as you kind of discover the film. And like I said, the film was being made and shot during the writer's strike. So it was a really tough time because I'm sure that there were things that JJ would have wanted to write or do differently, or, you know, and you know, during that time it was just difficult to make a film during a strike. But so a lot of it, you know, was being re-edited and rejiggered that way. So we were constantly trying to find what the movie was. So all of us were having that same. And what I also found was like JJ and Bob and Alex and everyone went through that thing where they were fans of the series. So their first reaction is to do what you think people want, and then realize, no, that's not the right step to take. Then come back, take a look at yourself, take a look at what you're making, and then actually do what's right for the story. You know, so everyone went through that process, but we all went through it painfully in our own little way. So.
And talk a little bit about the, you know, this movie has a great opening sequence, and to me, you know, you had a great accomplishment in writing all the series music for Lost. Which was something J.J. Abrams was involved in, and it's, you know, it seems to me what the biggest thing that he brought to this movie is a real focus on, you know, like realistic emotions. And it was something you don't always see done very well in space movies. And this opening sequence, your music, it struck me as similar to the kind of approaches you took in certain scenes in Lost, where